Prime here, so impressive. It's incredible watching Prime as we get into game number 2. One of the longer standing veterans, and it's fun watching the long playing Smite players because I feel like a lot of the original Smite guys have kind of worked along the way. Prime is still at the top of his game, and he's still playing out here like one of the best mids in the world.
Yeah, he definitely is, and I think after having his kid and being able to actually attend this LAN, he has even more of an urge to win.
Yeah,
because he's got to look after his kids, you know?
What an incredible story. If you guys haven't been following along, middle laner PrettyPriMe, arguably the star player for Obey, almost didn't make this LAN. His child was born just a couple of days before he actually boarded the plane to come here to Atlanta. He's been lucky enough to join the squad, and oof, I think Obey and their fans are very happy about that.
And even with this kid having been born in time, I mean, shout out to Irene, his wife, for being clutch with that timing, but at the same time, you know, it's never easy to leave a wife and a newly born kid behind. So I'm right there with Fails. I think that PrettyPriMe knows exactly what he has on the line now. It's more than just about providing for himself and his wife. Now he's got a whole family.
Yeah, and to Prime's credit, I think he's always been one of the more grounded individuals in the Smite scene. If you ever got a chance to watch him stream or lucky enough to have a conversation with him, he's just a very cerebral, kind of thoughtful guy. I don't think he ever really does anything by accident. I think everything is all calculated when it comes to PrettyPriMe. First pick will be the Freya one more time. Bans look very familiar if you saw game number 1. Option over to Mouse. Fails, what would you like to see Mouse pick up here?
I want them to stray away from the 3 Guardians or 3 Guardian type comps and 2 Hunters and go for more aggressive mouse style like that we're used to. I mean, Obey's bans are great here because they take away 2 of the most aggressive picks, both favored by Cherryo and BigManTingz.
Jing going to be the hunter choice here for Mouse. We've seen her really rise in prominence over this HRX placements week, even getting to the point where we're seeing her banned.
This is just a heavy response pick, though, for Dardez, I feel, because you kind of have to go for the Jing into the Freya, at least if you're expecting that to be Ataraxia piloting the Freya again, which is honestly the direction that I feel composition is headed one more time for Obey and Mouse. They might also have a couple of the same strategies up their sleeve because that Khepri's coming through yet again. The only thing they're missing from their first 3 bans is that Kraken.
Like I said earlier, I liked what I saw of Cherryo's Khepri up until a certain point of the game. If he's able to make those adaptations, I'm still a fan of the Khepri. Are you on the same page, or would you like to see a different support?
I'd love to see a different playstyle as a whole. I feel this is just a salty EU runback that we used to seeing over and over.
Just we have faith in what we did. We didn't really, you know, we just messed it up on the battlefield. We think we kind of nailed the draft.
Yeah, and this is the Odin that I wanted to see in the first game, and I'm glad they're picking it here, especially paired with the Zeus.
Loving this combination. As I said, one of the oldest comps in the world. Odin drops a big ring, and Zeus drops a circle the size of said big ring. So anybody locked in there is going to get rained on, and Zeus going to look really strong. So the reason that you and I postulated that they didn't go Odin after game number 1 was because of lack of peel. Maybe they wanted a little bit more peel. We saw the Athena grab. Obey, is that where we're expecting them to go in the second half of their draft?
I feel like they recognized that the Zeus was getting jumped on every fight and dying for it, and although they were winning the fights, I think they do want to draft more peel related.
Having things a little bit more peel-oriented and also that lack of physical damage was another point that we managed to address behind the scenes. And Obey, they still have a couple of options left open if they really feel like their physical power is going to be lacking here, but I don't think they had too many issues with sieging those Phoenixes after dominating the team fights. If you only have to fight into 1 or 2 members from Mouse, it doesn't matter if you have 4 magical. As long as the enemy team is missing, that makes any Phoenix pretty easy to take.
Exactly. I think that's always a hot topic of conversation in chat. I didn't get a chance to sit in it, but whenever we see 4 magical or 4 physical, it's like an egregious, you broke all the rules of war. When it comes down to 4 magical, I think you have a little bit more leeway because the itemization just isn't there as easily as 4 physical. And as we saw in game number 1, it really wasn't a problem.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. We saw Rama pick up Talisman of Energy, which was a great item for the team as a whole. And I think we saw a Bulwark on someone else, and honestly, there's so many better physical items that you can build defensively than there are magical.
And then the problem when you go heavy magical is the fact that, well, all right, now you don't have anybody to kill the towers or the Phoenixes. What if you just kill all of the players? Then it really doesn't matter how long it takes the structures to go down. I think that's kind of Obey's approach to game number 2. Second round of bans coming out. Mouse are going to ban that Athena. so Obey won't have the Global Guardian available to them. Perhaps more importantly, iRaffer's taunts won't be there. And the Raijin banned by Obey.
I'm not convinced that this is an Odin in the jungle just yet, though. There's
Same.
still a high likelihood that this Odin could very well end up in the support role for iRaffer instead. I think Mouse are just trying to play it safe. They're removing a lot of that hard crowd control, so they won't have to worry about the Athena taunts to pull relics. They won't have to worry about that Fear No Evil to control their initiation factors. But if this Odin is support, I think that I would favor that for Obey because early rotation is going to be a little bit better paired alongside of the Zeus. And not only that, but this Susano pickup from Mouse feels a little bit more comfort as opposed to what might have worked best. Like, sometimes it's good to go for the comfort picks here for FrostiaK, but Susano into this Odin Zeus, I think, could encounter a lot of complications of just simply dying or getting controlled before he ever has an opportunity to collapse on top of the Zeus.
Susano into Odin's an interesting one. That's definitely one of the kind of split down the middle. What's your take on that matchup?
I feel like this is itself is a FrostiaK special, and I prefer playing Susano into Odin actually because you can free out the cage and you have a much better early game than him. So if this Odin does go to jungle, I'm hoping he can bully him out, take away his XP, and put him behind basically.
Well, Chalk being thought about by Obey. We've seen Xaliea play this before. A very aggressive pick, which is more akin to Mouse. In fact, Mouse was the team that gave me my Chalk mid. So I'll always kind of give them a thumbs up in that direction. But now Obey, thinking about this guy, Chalk is a character a lot of people trash. I think the attack speed reduction has been a really big improvement for Chalk, but he also brings damage. That said, for Obey, when I'm looking at Freya, Odin, Zeus, that's a little bit more what I want to see. Chalk doesn't bring any control. Baron Samedi, on the other hand, that's all he does.
I just don't think Chalk would have really been able to do much of anything that you would have wanted a Chalk for. There's no double hunters this time around for Mouse so far because of the new pickup. I don't think that the attack speed reduction should be the focus here from Obey. I like the Baron, always love heavy control mages being brought into this composition because you already have the Odin to deny such a large space, and with Baron's life of the party, it's going to be even more complicated on Mouse if they're trying to disengage after failed initiations.
The Achilles is also an interesting pick. This is likely to find its way into the jungle. I think there's some wiggle room between Odin and Achilles. I don't know if that's going to be Twig or iRaffer, and I think that's a big part of what Obey kind of does here. Taco, you're laughing at Kuzenbo. What's up?
I'm not laughing. I despise Kuzenbo with every fiber of my being. This god is broken, and nothing can convince me otherwise. I don't care if Mouse even loses this game. Kuzenbo is an incredibly strong pick. I love seeing it because all that damage reflect could pose some serious issues for Ataraxia and Prime.
How do you feel playing into Kuzenbo?
I think this is a really strong Kuzenbo pick here itself, just because it's into Zeus. If he gets Thorns and he activates his 2, the Zeus is going to kill himself, basically. Plus, with the 2 activated, you get double dash, you get double Nene, and honestly, it's just really good into Obey's comp as a whole.
I love it into the Freya as well. As soon as you hear Freya go, boom, you hit your shell and you go, do it.
Yeah.
Hit me, please.
Stand in front of them, soak all the damage, let
also,
them die.
It's the fact that if it is Baron or Achilles in that solo lane role, Kuzenbo is going to have a pretty favorable laning matchup against them. I think Kuzenbo is a little bit of a lane bully right now in solo, and if he's able to have his free reign over there, because Obey are probably going to have to shift most of their attention towards keeping PrettyPriMe safe, then Kuzen might just be able to get a little bit too far ahead before Obey even realizes what's going on.
Nika is certainly a strong player in his own right, going to bring out the Kuzenbo. It's going to be fun to watch. Obey right now trying to take the set here as it stands. Mouse looking to stretch it out to a third game. We're going to watch his Nene. Kuzenbo coming through. John and Toli, take us away.
Obey up against Mouse. 1 game win away for the You Shall Obey squad from making their way to DreamHack. Can they do it with Prime, who might not even have been here, fortunate to join up with the rest of the squad? Mouse is all that stands in their way.
And what a performance out of them in game number 1, really switching things up from the aggressive nature to holding defensively against mousesports, switching things up in their composition as well. iRaffer not playing the Guardian Athena. The Warrior Odin will be the selection for game 2.
And they're putting Twig on this Achilles, which we saw played, I believe, by Nika in the last game. So a much more aggressive composition here from Obey between the Freya, the Zeus, this Odin, the Achilles. It's a ton of damage, and not so much hard CC, but like the ability to sort of corral you all into one space and then drop all their damage. This could potentially be scary from Mouse.
It's funny because with how aggressive Obey want to be with their draft, I think mousesports want to be passive in the early game with their draft. I think they're really relying on the late game aspect. BigManTingz yet again.
That's a good point. They could potentially be in a spot where they have pressure in no places on the map. This Kuzenbo should likely be okay, but it'll be a while, maybe a couple of levels where FrostiaK's ready to go. Tingz and Zeus could be tough as Horrifics are traded out in the duo lane. This Khepri Jing might lose out to this Freya Odin as well. Mouse have got to be particularly careful here early.
Oh, they're taking a lot of poke here onto Cherryo. Dardez trying to return the favor onto Ataraxia, but I think Obey shall be successful in stealing away some of these camps because already mousesports needing to deal with those archers.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to get over here in time to this purple buff, so Obey stripped that one away, and Tingz goes to defend his red. For my money, Tingz played the best from Mouse in that last game. I loved the way he looked in that ROM. Hopefully he can bring that same magic this game on the new WoB, though it's hard to believe he'll be able to have quite that same impact. We'll see, though. He had a great game one.
I'll give him the MVP for the offense, but for defense, my man's Cherryo saving FrostiaK several times. He was all over the place. It was unfortunate that he couldn't save Nika, or sorry, couldn't save FrostiaK under that tier 2 tower with how far away he was. But outside of that little hiccup, I think mousesports playing pretty well.
We'll see if they can make this work. We were thinking that there was a chance iRaffer could be on that Achilles because he loves to play these aggressive gods. But I like the Odin for him a little bit more. The less likely, I think, that he'll get baited into a bad spot on this pick. And Twig could potentially just get out of control on the Achilles.
And the thing is, the difference between an Achilles and an Odin with physical power shall favor the Achilles. All you need from your Odin is to be the ult bot. So put him with a bunch of tanky items, some cooldown reduction, some aura items for your teammates, and you're just going to be fine because CaptainTwig will be bringing the pain.
Yeah, that's right. If they both have support builds, you'd rather have the Odin with that support build, right? So this much easier for Twig to build a little more offensively inside the jungle for Obey, as there's still no kills early, but I don't think the pace is very slow this time. iRaffer and Ataraxia have been quite aggressive in this duo lane, having mousesports backed up against their tower line, though iRaffer did just take some poke. Maybe he didn't have to.
I understand what he was trying to do, stand in front of his archers so that way Dardez can't last hit it, trying to get them under the tower, but you got to respect the abduct as well. I think that getting pulled onto the tower is a little bit of an unnecessary poke.
Root on Ataraxia sets up Dardez for the follow-up damage. FrostiaK is slowly making his way here to this fight on the Susano. Dardez going in aggressively, another horrific emblem, and FrostiaK with a chance to get not just one, but potentially a double first blood for the Susano.
Not going to want to teleport to the jet stream for the extra basic attack, but the great double pull from FrostiaK takes out Ataraxia, and he didn't even use the beads. I think he was dead to rights either way.
That was a great rotation from FrostiaK, and it was one desperately needed by the duo lane of mousesports. All they had to do was keep letting Obey step forward and forward and forward until eventually they were too far forward, and FrostiaK was able to clean up.
Obey was just a little too aggressive, falling right into mousesports' little trap, and we were mentioning how mousesports needs to be a little bit more methodical and careful / passive, but if Obey are going to overstep like that, then that's going to be some easy, clean pickings every time.
And I want to look back at that respawn first blood, too, because Dardez dashes in so aggressively, even before FrostiaK shows up, and that's really where the good damage on Ataraxia comes from, and then FrostiaK is able to clean up with the blink.
And this is why Jing is so popular. During that whoop, Ataraxia trying to peel for himself, the agility dash brings Dardez even closer for more pot shots, even separating himself away from iRaffer, not allowing that warrior Odin to intercept any basic attacks.
Things will probably slow down a little bit over there in that duo lane, or at least some wards will come out, which you do now see Obey has dropped. But Cherryo nearby, so is FrostiaK and Tingz. Ataraxia and iRaffer have got to be careful in this one. Typhoon already charged, and it does not hit home. FrostiaK trying to see if they can punish, and iRaffer going back in, but unable to contest the Oracles.
Oracle Vision going the way of mousesports. I like the idea trying to intercept iRaffer, but just not long enough of an abduct, only about level 1, so you're not getting the longest pull duration, allowing the Odin to just jump away.
So that does mean FrostiaK might have to be a little more passive just for the moment, since he won't have the ultimate to help him out with those ganks, but only for a little while. He'll be back up before too long. And I think you're okay with that, too. FrostiaK looking for those attempts. We already said the early game probably favors Obey. If Obey keeps stepping a little bit too far forward and Mouse have a chance to punish, I think they should swing for it every time.
I think so, too. But CaptainTwig needs to be in position for some of these plays. But the problem is he doesn't have the blink at level 1. He needs the beads to make sure that he's not going to get abducted / rooted from Cherryo and put it just between a rock and a hard place. So I like and respect the idea. By having beads, you're also allowing yourself to use your Fatal Strike offensively, not having to use it all the time just to get away.
And Toli, you were saying earlier that you were thinking that this Mouse team probably just does not want to fight early, or they're looking to kind of wait. What stage of the game is Mouse really trying to wait for with this comp?
I think about the level 14 marker. Once BigManTingz hits 14, gets about 4 items completed or so, that's when mousesports can easily start grouping up. Clay Golems needs to be at that max rank to provide all that magical penetration.
Look at this, Twig going with the Golden Blade. This item very popular. Obvious synergy with Mercury, but I mean, is it as strong as some of these other gods, especially the Achilles? I mean, is he getting all that value out of it too?
I mean, he's getting those back camps very quickly as both Xaliea and Nika trading out ultimates. Gonna favor out neither there, considering that they both have Shoes of Focus. But talking about the Golden Blade for CaptainTwig, this is an item that's a must pick up on Mercury, since you're really trying to clear those back camps, get the one shot off from the jungle camps in general. But if everyone from mousesports is going to group up, I see the merit, but I just don't value it the same way that CaptainTwig does. He really likes movement speed, even to the point where he'll pick up Frostbound on a Mercury.
Xaliea in trouble over in the solo lane. Another kill for Mouse as FrostiaK yet again makes a good gank attempt. Twig wants to try and punish on the back end, but there's just nothing there. FrostiaK on this Susano so far has been the key difference.
He's been ping-ponging from the left side to the right side. This is what you're expecting from your jungler in Season 5, really dictating the pacing of this game, and it's important that he does it considering he picks up the blink, making sure that he avoids any sort of aggression from Obey Alliance. But now, Obey, realizing that this kind of plays are happening, need to see at least what direction the FrostiaK Susano jungle is heading to make some counter rotations pop off.
Yeah, it's kind of on Twig to at least make sure he's nearby where FrostiaK is, or to at least, you know, let his lane opponents know to play a little bit more carefully if they don't see him. But Oracle's once again being contested. Ataraxia here this time, but yet again, Mouse able to grab both of them, even in the face of the duo lane, and they'll have the vision.
Just getting a little bit of vision here and there. iRaffer from behind, looking for the setup. Traps 2 in the cage.
And that means it's time for Prime with the follow-up. Cherryo very likely going to have to drop it on himself, but that's what Twig is here for, the execute through the Scarab's Blessing.
Oh, but the pullback onto iRaffer, not good enough though, because he's jumping over the wall. FrostiaK now forced to jump away there. PrettyPrime's detonate, not dealing enough damage for lethal.
And Twig went for that second hit off the Fatal Strike, not for the execute, but just for the damage on the FrostiaK, but he couldn't find him, unfortunately, with that hit. That might have been enough for them to be able to clean up that kill onto the Susano. But a good fight from Obey, and that starts with iRaffer fighting that two-man cage.
And I think this is going to be a clean-cut, clear strategy from Obey every time now before a Phantom gets picked up. Trap Cherryo, have CaptainTwig just squish the bug with a Fatal Strike, preventing the revive out of the Scarab's Blessing.
That is the way to play through it, and that's what caused Obey so much trouble in Game 1, right? It was FrostiaK really aggressively initiating, but he knew it was because he knew he had that safety of Cherryo pulling him back out with the Scarab's Blessing. They put this execute on the team to bypass it, and we saw it right there. At least that first time it worked. If they can continue to execute that way with it, then Mouse might be in trouble.
They definitely can be, and I think Cherryo needs to really commit to magical defense, maybe even selfish magical defense. And Bulwark of Hope wouldn't be a bad idea, trying to survive against the initial detonate damage from PrettyPrime before he gets the real penetration available.
And I don't know that it even necessarily has to be Cherryo that's the target. Whomever he looks for with that Scarab's Blessing,
true.
You know, Twig just needs to be there in response to it. But I agree, he's a particularly good target because it isn't really a good way to get out of the cage.
And I like the fact that FrostiaK was able to just narrowly get that jet stream off before the cage goes off, so he was able to teleport through it without having to worry about being the second victim on the side of mousesports, as Mouse are just interested in farming right now, not looking for any ganks quite yet. Posturing between the mid and the right are both of these junglers.
And once again, Ataraxia going with this defensive option with the Helm. Last game, it didn't seem to hurt his damage too much, so maybe this defensive item's okay.
This is like a Season 3 build on a lot of Soul players, where Barracuda and also Xenotronics of Luminosity Gaming would pick up the Soul, pick up the Celestial Legion helmet, and then just be able to combat against any physical hunter that they were dealing with, just because of how much protection this item is truly giving you upon all those stacks. You're getting, what, 90 protections?
It could be quite a bit once you're able to get all the way up there, and not too much of a hurt in the build pass. It does have some power, but certainly not quite as good as, you know, Pen or some of the other items Freya wants. But FrostiaK chunked immediately, once again able to dash right out of there, so not too worried about the cage, and that will be iRaffer's ult on cooldown.
I think that was a great disrupt coming from Dardez because of the knock-up. It stopped out iRaffer from getting the cage at the perfect timing that he needed to, allowing FrostiaK to just stream right in the nick of time, yet again, releasing himself from the clutches.
Tingz, though, was also under some pressure in the middle lane. I believe that was Twig that caught him out and forced him into the ultimate, and he was indeed able to get away because of it, but it will be on cooldown for a little while longer and make Tingz a little bit more vulnerable. We'll see if Twig wants to look forward one more time the next time they have one of these, you know, fights in the jungle. They haven't amounted to a whole lot yet. So far, only 3 kills, but we've seen several attempts.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of the kills quite yet, and I think that specifically between Ataraxia, he hasn't been able to get off the poke damage onto Dardez simply because of the agility through the banish every time. But I think that it's only going to get scarier once Ataraxia gets those items onto the frontliners that can't dash away during the whoop.
You said you wanted a bit of a selfish magic defense item from Cherryo, and you might have gotten it. It's Pestilence. It does still do good in terms of, you know, limiting the healing coming out from, you know, Xaliea, even Ataraxia, some self-heal he'll probably have. And it's still pretty good protection just as a single purchase magic defense item on its own. Or rather, the hardwood, sorry.
Yes, the hardwood is going to be a good idea for Cherryo to pick up, but I think the Celestial Legion from Ataraxia is almost too defensive in its own right. iRaffer going for a defensive measure in the Oni's Hunter's Garb. Considering how aggressive he has been in game number 1 on the Athena, it should only be more aggressive in game number 2 onto this Odin, the way he's positioning himself in the back line, trying to cage out multiple members. Obey not on the lead in the kill column, but despite being down about 500 gold earlier, they're slowly but surely trying to get that lead back.
We did talk about it, though, in the way that Mouse would be the ones who are, you know, kind of okay with treading water in this early game. And so far, they've been able to do it well. Maybe not here. Prime is the one that's in trouble, though. Tingz and FrostiaK team up to take down the Zeus. And now Twig has to ult away defensively. Mouse, yet again, group up and win the fight.
PrettyPriMe just too far out of position there, getting trapped and not being able, rather, to use the Aegis. A huge stutter now. It allows mousesports their 3rd kill of the game.
And remember, now the Fatal Strike and Scarab's Blessing are off sync for Obey. They want those 2 abilities to be up at the same time so Twig can try and counter him. If there's another fight shortly, Cherryo should be able to get that off without any trouble.
There's just so much CC on mousesports. Considering PrettyPriMe doesn't have beats, if you catch him in the Wind Siphon, you're going to catch him in the Abduct, you're going to catch him in the Clay Golem Shining Metal combination. All those CCs is plenty of damage also to get the kill before PrettyPriMe even has time to Aegis.
And this is what you have to do up against Obey, because they've been relying on Prime as like this cannon in the backline on these immobile mages who's been able to safely get away with doing a ton of damage. mousesports are doing their best to challenge that both in Game 1 and Game 2 and make life hard on Prime.
Looking for some more action as CaptainTwig. FrostiaK so low, PrettyPriMe taking him out.
They even find the slow one to Cherryo. Remember, Scarab's Blessing still here. They trap him inside the cage. Twig does not have the Fatal Strike this time, so Cherryo will respawn, but it's right back into the shield. Prime deletes him, but Nika wrapping around is able to find Twig.
Takes out CaptainTwig. Dardez is getting off a lot of damage, forcing Ataraxia to go into the Valkyrie's discretion. Airstrike chasing him out. Here comes the Clay Golems and takes out Ataraxia.
Tingz the one that cleans it up, and Dardez is able to help find iRaffer with some help from Nika. Dardez played that one nearly perfectly to be able to keep that duration going long enough to get to iRaffer on the back end. A great fight from Mouse.
Xaliea a little bit too slow to the party there, despite him being the life of it. I think that it would have changed the course of that last last team fight. It was only a 3 for 2, I believe, at the end of the day. FrostiaK and Cherryo did take a spill, but iRaffer, Ataraxia, and CaptainTwig ultimately fell, allowing mousesports to get a 14-minute gold fury.
And that one well earned on the back of the fight, and now we're seeing our first lead start to develop. FrostiaK wants PrettyPriMe as well, who's been left alone, and an easy kill for the Susano. Even Ting's there just to make sure. Mouse now starting to build some momentum.
FrostiaK just gets absolutely eliminated. Soloing him, PrettyPriMe couldn't do anything in that encounter. FrostiaK being able to really make it happen, knowing that the Aegis was not available, knowing that BigManTingz has that global pressure right beside him. This is the kind of plays you're expecting from your jungler.
And now Obey on the right-hand side of the map. Wouldn't it be near the Pyromancer? They don't want to let any more objectives go away as mousesports are starting to build a bit of a lead for themselves. But these fights have been starting and ending with good focus onto Prime. They're not allowing him to be comfortable, and that's what's opening the door up for another Pyromancer, the first one of this game, as iRaffer groups around. He's all alone on the left-hand side. He has to leave.
Oh, but that's going to allow mousesports to go back onto it. CaptainTwig is calling out the health bars, forcing mousesports to constantly reset it. Nika being the nuisance with a turtle in the background. mousesports with another objective.
Twig has to ultimate defensively, but FrostiaK follows him through with the jet stream. iRaffer will trap several members inside the cage, but no one in position to follow up, so mousesports just shrug it off.
Obey or trying to retreat, but I don't know if mousesports should give it up there. They do have that one-man power play. CaptainTwig not due to respawn for another 20 seconds. Cherryo looking to hide under the fog there, catches out PrettyPriMe, but doesn't want to receive all that damage from the Zeus and Freya combo.
I think he was right to use the abduct to reposition there. He was definitely in some trouble because everyone else had kind of backed away on the back end of that fight. But Mouse have done a really good job lately, responding when iRaffer goes in with the cage, responding when Trig tries to go forward to find stuns, catching out that single target, and then disengaging. Obey can't get their combo up.
No, they definitely can't. FrostiaK, good job chasing Twig through that fatal strike. That's what you really need to do. It's normally you're thinking of the Hunbat or the Susano that can catch those members with those teleports of the abilities. So not only using his blink for the engagement, but can use the jet stream as well.
And you highlighted it earlier, but Xaliea has been essentially a non-factor through 17 minutes of gameplay so far. He just hasn't been able to have the same impact that Nika's been able to have. We've seen several fights now where Nika is able to rotate in the back and clean up a couple kills or be disruptor with that watery grave. They need Xaliea involved earlier on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think now it's not too late for him, but I think Obey are now forced to play defensively as a result of the non-existence from their Baron solo lane. They need to find a way to get him more involved. iRaffer just jumping up and down. Questionable decision, knowing that Mouse can capitalize on him now.
Well, they are going to be able to try and pressure this tier 1 tower. It's funny, if you jump up and down in place to avoid the persistent gust, you've basically been hit by it.
FrostiaK using the Typhoon through the wall there. He tried to make his combo happen. What FrostiaK likes to do on the Susano is he'll drop the Typhoon, he'll use the blink into the pull, but Nika not slowing down, catching out iRaffer.
And he's continuing to push forward. Why not? The Kuzenbo is a much better disruptor once he's inside the fray. iRaffer's already dropped the cage. Xaliea trying to pull back in FrostiaK. They get the stun, but Scarab's Blessing's there. They wait for it, and there's the execute from CaptainTwig.
That's 1 down, 4 to go. iRaffer jumps in, Twig blinks on in as well. BigManTingz gonna use the ultimate, spread out all the damage. mousesports could still capitalize on this.
Tingz is very healthy. Nika jumps in one more time, can't find the Nene, but he is able to lock down Twig for Tingz, but he didn't have any cooldowns available, so Twig's able to just walk away.
Oh, that's so unfortunate, but PrettyPriMe is just prime real estate there on the left side all by his lonesome, only getting the 1 stack onto Cherryo. But what can Obey really get off this Gold Fury? Not due to respawn in 1 minute.
But no big surprise, right, Toli? If Obey Alliance are able to get the execute on the Scarab's Blessing target, then what do you know? They win the fight.
Yes.
So far, mousesports have been able to break up that combo, that chain of events. This time, Obey are actually able to succeed on it, and now they're the ones. It's only a 1 for 0, but they get the kill at the very least.
And they even force out the Phantom from Cherryo. Can go for round 2 once they all get a little bit healthy. Ataraxia missing a little bit of his mana. Fire Giant could be postured at, honestly. Ataraxia does have the damage, sitting at level 17.
can make it work in one more fight. You said it before, Gold Fury wasn't there when Obey would have liked it, but now only about 15 seconds away, and it can certainly still group up around it. Phantom will be 60 seconds away. Blink's on cooldown for a little while longer as well. But Obey Alliance also not with a ton of relics, though Ataraxia appears to have been very comfortable in the last fight. Still has Beads and Aegis both there.
And now finishing off his rod of Tahuti, he's going to be swinging for the fences, but it's mousesports swinging at the Gold Fury first. 20 minutes in. I don't know if they're going to get this. Obey around the corner. Nika, look at Nika, the way he's going to try to go onto PrettyPriMe.
That's been the target all set long, so why not here again? Nika gets banished, and that is good initiation for some poke. Xaliea heals the team up as well, but Nika, for the most part, is tanky enough, and we go back to the Gold Fury pull.
Once Obey sees the Clay Golems being down, this allows CaptainTwig and iRaffer to go in freely, knowing they're not going to get disrupted by all that obnoxious magical damage.
Oh, they're inside the fog. I don't know if they recognize they're here, but there wasn't a target for them to grab. Another good banish from Ataraxia. Prime tries to follow up, but again, can't get the damage onto the primary targets. So Obey, yet again, fall back for a moment. Again, they're being very patient around the pull.
As long as Ataraxia can banish literally anyone that's not named Dardez, that's going to be great poke damage. Nika already sitting at about 80 to 70% health. Could be the tipping scale to allow Obey Alliance to just be the aggressors.
And Tingz is trying to sneak in an initiator with that fog. I love the way they're using it, but Obey not biting. They're staying too far back as Twig does not get rooted. Ataraxia, though, does get pulled back in, but Twig was right there waiting. FrostiaK on the left-hand side is the one trying to find a target, but as Cherryo gets pulled back in, he has to Scarab's Blessing on himself.
Everyone is trying to focus onto Ataraxia in the background. There goes the fire shards as well. Aegis not going to be used there. Ataraxia still holding on to it for the moment. And without their Freya player, mousesports are going to be aggressive.
They can head right back towards the Gold Fury. It's Prime, who's been caught out, though, by FrostiaK inside the Lightning Storm. The first kill of this fight goes the way of Mouse, but now FrostiaK might pay for it with his life. There's nowhere for him to go. He bounces right towards Twig. It's 1-for-1, but Gold Fury is below half.
It's so close to being dead. Xaliea not able to take that one away, but they could try to stop some of the bags here. CaptainTwig looking for Nika in the mid lane. Xaliea soon to follow.
They've got to make sure someone, though, is with Prime in these fights. They did a good job responding when it was Nika that dove him, but as soon as they switched to FrostiaK, Prime was isolated.
There were 3 different stages of that team fight, Finch. Hold that thought, though, because it's not done yet. Nika's going to get whooped out. Ataraxia coming back rather healthy. And speaking of Ataraxia, he was the first stage of that fight, getting isolated and alone. He was forced to Valkyrie's discretion very early in the engagement.
Well, Pyromancer's very low. Obey Alliance should be able to grab this to at least try and answer back to the Gold Fury. Mouse just grabbed, but Mouse want more blood. iRaffer uses the cage, banish there too, and that is enough for the disengage from Obey.
Good timing from iRaffer to drop the cage. It's a very short cooldown. Gonna get stopped on the back several times. A little 3-on-3 on the right side that neither team really wants to take, but knowing that iRaffer doesn't have the cage, they're actually pulling the Fire Giants.
They've baited Ataraxia in. That's enough to get the Purification Beads. A huge win for Mouse. As long as they can get away with no more injuries, no cage, but iRaffer jumps in anyway and is immediately blown up by BigManTingz.
Look at FrostiaK wrapping around. Who is the target? It might be even Xaliea. He's forced to use the CC immune ultimates.
But he is pulling in just about everyone as Twig is able to find Nika on the right-hand side. FrostiaK, though, even better with the pull. Xaliea ends up falling a little bit short. Ataraxia up in the air, but only for a moment. He's low HP, and Fire Shard should be enough.
A 3-for-1. Only Nika takes the ultimate tumble, but they want more. The pull is good. PrettyPriMe takes one, but not until FrostiaK eliminates CaptainTwig.
Man, the opposite of what our fights normally look like. This time, it's only Prime who's still standing. mousesports do not have Dardez. It's Cherryo, Tingz, and FrostiaK, and they don't feel comfortable going for the FG just yet. So even though the fight's heavy, FrostiaK goes for the dive. Prime ends up falling again.
An unofficial deicide, Finch. Finally, iRaffer does respawn. FrostiaK has the MVP play mentality of Obey.
He is able to lock down FrostiaK, but again, able to jet stream right through. No big deal for the Susano. But Mouse unable to get the Fire Giant on the back end. So yes, they get some kills, but not entirely doom and gloom for Obey. They need a little bit of time to get everyone respawn, but then they can regroup.
We need to remind the folks at home, Finch, that mousesports are the 5th-seeded European team.
That's very true.
Up against Obey Alliance.
And just swapped their whole team around like a month ago,
last
by the way.
second, yeah.
So
up against the 3rd-seeded European team that had that first round bye.
This has been very impressive for Mouse, and they're playing their hearts out right now. Remember, Obey Alliance are the ones who really need this game. If they grab it, it's just that easy, and they qualify on through to DreamHack. mousesports, if they were to lose, would be dropped down into that lower bracket. So they're trying their best to cling on to their lives here in this game, and they've looked very strong in this set so far. It's been largely around taking out Prime early.
Yes, Prime has been definitely the focus point in game number 1 specifically, and it's not switched in game number 2. You can't allow the Zeus the freedom to get off multiple chain lightning detonation combos.
So far, they haven't. iRaffer, half HP already. iRaffer,
he's
nearly dead. He has the shield to get away from the fire shards, so he just barely survives. But Twig has to use Fatal Strike defensively. mousesports have Obey Alliance on their heels so far.
That's true. They even got the shell off just to save the life of CaptainTwig. Without that shell, he was dead to rights. And mousesports not even chasing, clean Fire Giant 25 minutes in.
And it's just so safe for Mouse to get their damage off. This is the point of the game you were alluding to that mousesports wanted to get to, where Tingz can freely just throw out the fog, can explode the clay soldiers, where Dardez can do damage from the backline as well. It's too much for Obey. They can't find a way in.
I thought Obey would be a little bit more aggressive, but it was FrostiaK that started things off with a bang because of that way he was able to use that level 1 blink. Starting things off into the duel lane, onto Ataraxia, switching things up, not even maybe 2-3 minutes later onto Xaliea, all the way across the map. And since then, Obey have been relatively quiet, allowing mousesports to try to force things and play more reactionary.
Fire Giant now on all 5 members for Mouse. They also enjoy a nearly 8,000 gold lead out in front as they've doubled up here in the kills. 9,000 experience, though that will be meaning less and less here as we across the 26-minute threshold. mousesports even have more gold to get, all 3 tier 2 towers standing, and really it'll be difficult for Obey to defend them. This has switched into the sieging stage of the game.
Oh yes, 4,500 gold await them between these 3 towers. That'll extend their lead to 11,500 if they confirm all 3, but it looks like they're going for the Phoenix before the remaining tier 2 towers.
And yeah, this is a good idea, right? Force Obey to show they can defend you against you in a fight. They have not in about 10 minutes. So let's put them to test here against the full Fire Giant squad. They've got their whole team aside from CaptainTwig here. Twig is in right, just kind of trying to get caught up in farm.
I think that they see him over that sentry ward. I'm not really too sure. If they knew that he was there, maybe they full-on commit in that left side, but instead going for the more guaranteed tier 2 tower in the mid, getting another 1,500 gold, switching things up to the middle. Phoenix now.
Well, they certainly know now, and that's why they're aggressing, and Nika wants to go for Prime. Who else? And Prime all the way in the fountain. No way he can follow up on a good cage from iRaffer. Cherryo has the Scarab's blessing on himself, so he will survive. Even gets the reset, so he heals, and Ataraxia has to go up into the air.
He's going to have that ultimate now, not available. Finally, CaptainTwig showing his presence, but mousesports not very healthy. Good pull onto Twig, can't even get away.
FrostiaK starts things off. Xaliea will be the next one. Dardez removes him. 5 up against 3, and Dardez wants to make it 2, but just barely is iRaffer able to get away. Mid lane, Phoenix will fall, and mousesports looking very clean here in game 2, though their job is not done yet. They look like they're on the door, right on the steps of taking us to a game 3.
The biggest difference, Finch, is this Kuzenbo pick for Nika. Not too impactful on the Achilles in game number 1, but man, against the Zeus, like, what could PrettyPriMe do in that situation by himself? He's just going backwards into his fountain. As soon as the blink happened from Nika, you could tell he was going to chase PrettyPriMe till the end of the world. Trading your soul laner's life for PrettyPriMe's life, that means the rest of mousesports have a free 4-on-4 that can avoid a lot of area of effect damage.
Yeah, Prime is going to be seeing Nika in his nightmares tonight, and with how often he's been diving him on the backline, not giving him an opportunity to breathe. And the adjustment we saw in game 1 was that iRaffer started, the second that they blinked on a Prime, right, he started peeling for him instantly. Instead of engaging, he just turned around and taunted. But they don't really have that same option in this game.
I'm calling it now, Finch. Either they're banning away the Kuzenbo, or they're switching to a Vulcan for PrettyPriMe. He can't be a non-factor in some of these late-game skirmishes, especially on a god such as Zeus that has full damage yet again.
I mean, they just don't have enough peel, though, on this comp, right? Who is it that can help PrettyPriMe once Nika gets to him on the backside?
That's very true. We were talking about how great this composition Obey was early game, but the lack of CC is really starting to show. You can trap as many people you want in the cage at this point in the game because mousesports has the Phantom now to get on out of it.
And he can't trap them away from Prime because the initiation's coming via the blink, right, from Nika. So there's really just not a way for him to stop them from getting back there. And once they are, Prime hasn't had any options, at least yet, on how to make sure he at least gets his damage off. Maybe Prime should try and just walk through Nika next time and just throw out his kit no matter what. Possibly.
If he's only getting focused by Nika, I like that idea. But remember game 1 where it was Nika and FrostiaK between the Achilles Khepri, that hurt him a lot. So FrostiaK on the Susano doing a plenty amount of damage, almost 17,000 total, only having 1 defensive item in his whole set.
And once again, and it's really just not that Prime thread with Nika. You're right, FrostiaK has been a tremendous disruption for Obey as well with those pulls. He was able to isolate Twig in that last fight. The knockups from the Typhoon have been great as well. Right now, mousesports are pulling Obey from multiple directions, and they can't find their footing to get a response.
13,000 gold in the lead, looking for the second Fire Giant. Will be the enhanced version as well. Not interested in the defense. Obey Alliance just going to split push until they can get maybe this 1,500 gold. Should be able to get confirmed.
Yeah, they're just looking for gold anywhere they can find it to try and keep things even. Not too far behind about an item, I would say, for just about everyone. That's definitely going to hurt, but they're going to need some more to catch up to this 14,000 gold disparity. And there's no time. mousesports right now are barreling down the door of the right side Phoenix.
The dual lane Phoenix not being looked at. It's going to be the soul lane instead. 4-1 split. Nika going to throw out the Nene Kappa. Considering that Phoenix is down, that means fire minions are going to trickle down the middle lane.
And right now, Nika in the left side, so Prime might actually have a moment to breathe if the Turtle is going to be a little bit more concerned with that mid than with trying to get towards the Zeus. Phoenix takes a little bit of poke, but it's not an all-in commit from Mouse yet. Now Nika is blinking to the backline, but he wants Ataraxia, force out the Aegis early on, and Fire Shards cleans it up.
If it's not PrettyPriMe, then it's Ataraxia, but now FrostiaK is trapped in the cage, but a beautiful Scarab's Blessing, saving the life of FrostiaK.
Yeah, why not? I mean, Cherryo able to come in on the backside and keep him alive. Right side Phoenix down, mid Phoenix is just about to respawn, but they don't even want it. They want the fight instead. iRaffer is far forward, and the cage has already been expended, so the key piece of their combo is missing.
Finch, are you ready for game 3? Because mousesports is definitely looking for game number 3 here, taking out 2 Firebirds with Ataraxia dead for 30 seconds. I don't see how Obey defend the left side.
It's going to be difficult, but it could certainly start with Prime finding a big lightning storm. Cherryo locked down the middle, and Twig is the one that finds the kill. But look at FrostiaK. He wants to come around the back. Xaliea is good, though, to zone him away 4 against 4 to try and siege the left Phoenix.
I'm going to eat my words, Finch, because that was a great ultimate being used by PrettyPriMe. No Scarab's Blessing available for Cherryo. FrostiaK couldn't get in the thick of things without the blink, and that was the biggest factor.
Not quite able to make their way there. Cherryo just gets caught out a little bit too far forward, but can you really call it a failure from Mouse if they're able to find 2 Phoenixes and keep that middle one weakened so they can continue their fire waves pouring in? This is important time, though, for Obey to try and get farmed up, to try and get more and more competitive. They got the Fire Giant buff off at least 1 member, and they're only going to have another minute 48 on it remaining, but every second ticking helps Obey.
I definitely think that I agree with you. Obey need that last 6th item onto PrettyPriMe. I'm curious in what direction he's going to go. Might be the Rod of Tahuti for the pure outburst, but mousesports, a relatively successful Fire Giant, getting 2 Phoenixes, but more timing is allowed now for mousesports to focus on the left side, knowing that there's so many fire minions about to flood into the gates.
And I like that Nika was able to get to Ataraxia and was able to clean up that kill. But for me, the focus has to be Prime. If they switch that around, if it's Prime he kills and Ataraxia barely survives and comes back in, I don't know if they defend that left side Phoenix. That's something that only Zeus can do.
That's very true, but it wasn't necessarily about the kill onto Ataraxia that switched things up. I think it was about the overcommitment, getting trapped in the cage, and the ultimate from Cherryo was necessary to get him out, but then that means that there was no defense on the side of that right side or left side Phoenix siege.
Well, nice poke from Mouse onto Ataraxia. He's already been hurt quite a bit. And I don't even know if Obey are going to be able to defend this Phoenix. It's already very low, below half. They reposition. and force Mouse back for a minute. We're following on with FrostiaK, but remember to keep your eye on Nika as well and where this Kuzenbo chooses to go.
The double blinks are about to occur any second now. They're really waiting for some fire minutes. And look at the Titan room. Here comes 2 waves. Somebody has to deal with it. It's going to be CaptainTwig.
And Nika goes for Ataraxia yet again. Then he switches over towards Prime. He does get the Lightning Storm off at least, but not able to have any more follow-up. Left side Phoenix is going to end up falling. Xaliea is isolated and Dardez finds the kill. Now Nika has iRaffer and CaptainTwig push back. Minions coming in from every direction. mousesports starting to swell into the Titan room, and Obey got to find a miracle defense if they want to end the set here.
Oh, it's going to be very low, Finch. mousesports bring it to game number 3.
Just not able to close it out where Obey. mousesports looked so strong in game 2. That entire time they're able to play so cleanly. Obey could not come up with a response. And look how locked in they are. FrostiaK, not even happy, knows there's more work to be done yet for this Mouse team. A chance to guarantee their trip to DreamHack right here.
They need to figure out, Obey need to figure out how to deal with Nika, because that last second game on the Kuzenbo was too disruptive. The double blink from this man, FrostiaK, and Nika created just a world of panic for the Zeus mid player. He couldn't really do anything in the late game.
No, he absolutely couldn't, and he did a good job not getting too focused in on it. I was saying that, you know, the focus on Ataraxia is what left Zeus some room, but Nika was able to do both. He got back in there, disrupted Ataraxia, forced out the ult, and pushed Prime away from the fight too, and that left Xaliea alone on the front line.
And what outside of what they did great in the late game, you can't discredit what FrostiaK did in the early game, taking out Ataraxia at the beginning, switching things up to Xaliea. Those 2 kills really open up for more early game momentum, and it prevented any early game momentum from Obey Alliance. And when you're drafting an Odin support and you're not the ones making those kind of plays, it's a little questionable.
Yeah, they had lane pressure, but you're right, the ganks, that was all coming up mousesports. Well, what more could you ask for? The very first set of the day goes to a game 3. Mouse versus Obey. Let's get it back to the desk for their thoughts.
Couldn't have it any other way. Absolutely wanted it this way. A 3rd game for the Obey and Mouse set, and what a pleasure it's been to watch this one. You know, we were looking at the Khepri and the target prioritization of Mouse, or lack thereof, and that might have been why they lost game number 1. But the adaptation came through. Game number 2, they absolutely find the right targets, and they find the win. Let's take a look at the post-game stats brought to us by Axis Replay.
I just felt so awful for Ataraxia the whole way through this match because Nika was not letting him do anything. You kind of even forget that the Freya was ever even a part of this match because of how heavily zoned Nika was able to keep Ataraxia away from those team fights. The Watery Grave, the Nene Kappas, all of that reflect damage. It's absurd how much control Nika had over the entirety of Obey. They were forced to respond to him.
Well, Nika got off to a strong start. I think he was 2 levels up on Xaliea. He was 17, Xaliea was 15, and he just sat on Ataraxia.
I mean, that's his job as a Kuzenbo, be that frontline presence, just be as annoying as possible. The Kuzenbo pick was great. You're talking about Ataraxia, also Prime, right? Prime ults, he can't stop that damage. Nika's just going to go take a shower. Hit that too, get all his cooldowns back. The double dash, like you were talking about, really impactful plays here coming out from the Kuzenbo player. He might have been the guy that won the game there for his team.
I also thoroughly enjoyed what FrostiaK was able to accomplish on that Susano. I think you nailed it perfectly, Fails, because the mobility that he had to get outside of this Odin cage and then look for a different target in the backline, while Nika had the front line from Obey distracted because he was harassing the carry so heavily, it kept allowing for numerous picks, and once Obey lost 1-2 members, that's just where the collapse from Mouse would come into play.
This has to be a change, I think. I think that the Kuzenbo just has to be banned if Obey wants to continue playing their style. They picked the Zeus, they picked the Freya almost every single game. If this is what they're going to stick to, they've got to ban out the Kuzenbo. On the other side, if they want to stick to it, or excuse me, if they want to move away from it and try to deal with the Kuzenbo, what direction do they walk in there for picks?
I feel they just need to put Ataraxia on a traditional hunter. We've seen him play well on Jing, on Rama, and Prime needs to go back to the Outwash, I think.
Yeah, the Outwash has been really powerful, not just for their team, but in general. FrostiaK bringing out the Susano, like we were talking about. It's a strong pick against the Odin. This is one of your stronger selections as well. We've kind of hit the surface level. Why don't you dive deeper and tell us why FrostiaK was so successful?
I feel this game Zeus was just left alone completely. We had FrostiaK soloed him multiple times throughout the game, and there was just nothing from Obey to stop it.
That really was just a problem. FrostiaK always a thorn in the side of PrettyPriMe.
The jet stream, I think, just had way too many complications there for Obey to properly deal with, because you never knew if FrostiaK was actually going to choose to follow it up, or if he was just going to leave it at bay and just kind of bait out the relics from the other members of Obey. And CaptainTwig on this Achilles, I think that the mindset from Obey was initially to just get everybody into execute threshold range and then kill them with the fatal strike, so that would make the Khepri ultimate irrelevant. But that never really came to fruition because they were just so swarmed by all of this aggressiveness from the Kuzenbo, from FrostiaK on the Susano. And by the way, just in case anybody managed to survive there, you've got the new ultimate on top of it all.
BigManTingz coming through there. One last bit about FrostiaK. My piece of analysis has always been that he's been very inconsistent. When he's hot, and when he's not, he's really not. I think one of my favorite pieces of analysis, somebody once said that when you all die, if he's at a 6, he's winning you the game. 1 through 5, not so much. I think the biggest boon for FrostiaK coming in here after a break from the game is he just seems cleaner, more consistent. I'm not seeing the holes in his game like we used to.
Yeah, when you take a break from competitive play in Smite itself, you really get time to come back and look at the game in a different outlook, and I feel like that's exactly what he's done here.
What's the difference between the way he used to look at the game and now, do you think?
I think he's just more experienced and he's had time to get away from the game, to focus on himself a little, and now that he's came back in, he's got stuff to prove.
Now he's working with BigManTingz, the mid laner. Nuwa is admittedly not one of my favorite picks. I really like Nuwa as a defensive mindset into characters like Bakasura or some of these characters that are really hard to peel because you can just go to space and literally peel for yourself. But Big Man certainly made it work here.
Big Man just wasn't the target point here for Obey. They didn't have any real opportunities to try and deal with him because they were just so busy trying to mitigate the damages from this Kuzen Susano combination out of Mouse. And all BigManTingz really had to do is the same duty as Cherryo, just press 4 when the time is right.
Yeah, just kind of do the kit. Nothing really out of the ordinary. Hazer right here having a conversation with solo laner Xaliea, trying to figure out which direction they want to go in. Xalia's pretty active in this conversation. Xaliea traditionally has been a hard carry solo laner. We used to like seeing that out of him. The Baron Samedi, I didn't really see much come out of Baron.
Yeah, well, the aim of Baron is you get to mid to late game and you just heal your team up, you don't die, and you create so much space for your team. But he got behind early, he got ganked early on, I think level 6 by FrostiaK, and he was just put behind the whole game, and they had no answer to it.
Yeah, it's kind of rough to work with that situation that he's given. So right now, the conversation is Xaliea asking for more help from CaptainTwig? Is he asking for more help for himself in the way of a different pick?
I think they just put him back on the Guardian, they put him on the Cerberus, the Sobek, the Terror, just ignore his lane and get him to late game where he can pop off, hopefully. That's
where he's been the most exciting, I think, on the characters like Sobek.
That did feel like part of the problem, though, was the fact that Xaliea finally picks a god that is punishable for once. So FrostiaK normally probably would have never even bothered straying over to the solo side of the map, because who wants to gank a Guardian at like level 5 when you're the jungler? Pretty much no one. And so when you're on the Baron, you just don't have that same sort of survivability. FrostiaK knew that, Nika knew that, and they abused it.